On July 7th, 2021, Chandler Halderson calmly walked into the police station and reported both of his parents missing. He even went on the news cooperating with officers like any worried son would.
Did you literally see them pulling out of the driveway heading out?
No.
Their son, Chandler Halderson, who asked to be off camera.
But behind that soft voice was a web of lies so deep, even seasoned detectives struggled to keep up. And as they peeled back each layer, they discovered this wasn't the first time Chandler had lied.
So I kind of just left it at that. They're safe, they're alive.
What happened? You know what happened. You were there when it happened. We're not BSing you, okay?
When it happened,
He told deputies his parents, Bart and Krista Halderson, had vanished after heading to the family cabin in White Lake, nearly 160 miles north of their home in Windsor, Wisconsin. Chandler claimed they left on Friday, July 2nd, to fix storm damage with some family friends. Friends he conveniently couldn't name, didn't contact, and apparently didn't think to ask about. Chandler said his parents were supposed to be back by Sunday, or maybe Monday. But by Wednesday, after days of silence and their phones going straight to voicemail, he finally decided to get the police involved. Deputies Joshua Seeley and John Nelson drove up to the family's cabin in White Lake, expecting to find signs that Bart and Krista had at least made it there. Instead, what they found raised serious red flags. The cabin was still, covered in dust, with no signs of recent activity. No bags, no dishes, no sign of life. Just an empty place that looked like it hadn't been touched in weeks. That's when things really started to shift. If the Haldersons never made it to the cabin, where did they go? They were well liked, had no known enemies, and absolutely no reason to vanish without warning. Suddenly, this wasn't just a missing persons case. It was the start of something much darker, and nobody saw it coming.
My wife is pretty shook up too. I mean, they're a very nice couple, very nice family.
As you can see, the Haldersons appeared to be your typical all-American family, quietly living in Windsor, Wisconsin, about 30 minutes north of Madison. Bart and Krista Halderson had been married since July 30th, 1994. Bart worked as a certified public accountant for BDO USA, while Krista was an administrative assistant at Zimbrick Automotive. Together, they raised two sons, 24-year-old Mitchell and 23-year-old Chandler. Mitchell, the older of the two, had already graduated from the University of Wisconsin and was working in software development. He lived on his own and was newly engaged. Chandler, on the other hand, still lived at home and, on paper, seemed to have a promising future. He was close to finishing a certificate in renewable resource engineering at Madison College and claimed to be working in IT for American Family Insurance. He also said he had just landed a job at SpaceX and was planning to move to Florida with his girlfriend, Catherine "Cat" Melander, once he graduated. From the outside, everything seemed normal. Mitchell and Chandler were typical brothers who had grown even closer during the COVID lockdowns, often spending their free time gaming online. But both had experienced health scares in the months leading up to July. Mitchell had been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes during a routine checkup and was briefly hospitalized. Chandler had recently suffered a fall down the stairs at home, hitting both the front and back of his head. He later claimed he had a concussion, vision problems, and nerve issues that made walking difficult. Then came the day their parents disappeared. Chandler was the one who informed Mitchell that Bart and Krista had supposedly gone to the family's cabin up north for the weekend. But this was news to Mitchell. He found it strange, especially since their mother, who he described as a bit of a helicopter parent, always told him whenever she and Bart planned a trip. This time, she said nothing. That silence immediately raised red flags. When Mitchell asked Chandler for more details, his brother said their parents left early Friday morning with some friends. Friends whose names he didn't know, and in a vehicle he couldn't describe. That didn't sit well with Mitchell either. Their parents typically drove themselves, and it was out of character for Krista to be so vague or last-minute about travel plans. On the morning of July 7th, Chandler went to the sheriff's precinct in Windsor and officially reported Bart and Krista missing. He told deputies they were supposed to return Sunday night or Monday morning, but later said he had received a text from his mother on Sunday, saying they'd be back either late Monday or early Tuesday. Deputies visited the Halderson home and tried calling the couple's phones, but every attempt went straight to voicemail. By that evening, the case was escalated, and detectives Brian Shunk and Sabrina Sims were brought in to investigate.
Authorities are still searching for a Windsor couple who have not been seen in days. 50-year-old Bart Halderson and his wife, 53-year-old Krista, were supposed to travel north last week and return home on Tuesday.
But their son tells Tony Galley his parents' whereabouts are unknown.
During a more in-depth interview, Chandler repeated his story with a few more details. He said he had helped his parents pack on Thursday, loading tools and supplies for the weekend. He claimed that when he woke up at 6:15 on Friday morning, they were already gone. Both of their vehicles, however, were still in the garage. He hadn't spoken to either of them since, but said he'd texted his mom several times. Most of the messages had gone through using iMessage, but a particular text sent at 4:47 p.m. on Saturday had sent as a regular SMS message, the kind that shows up when a phone is turned off or disconnected from the internet. The message read, "Hoping this goes through. I bet there's a lot of people up there making it hard to message." It was a convenient explanation, blaming poor cell reception due to 4th of July crowds, and one that seemed designed to keep suspicion at bay. The next day, Chandler said he received a reply from Krista. The message, which arrived on Sunday at 11:04 a.m., read, "Made it safely. Can't get anything through, and yes, it's packed. Going to White Lake today for the parade, and we'll be home Monday night, Tuesday early. Love you lots." At first glance, it looked perfectly normal, but investigators began to notice things that didn't quite add up. For one, Krista never informed her employer that she'd be taking any time off. Not for Monday, not even for Friday. Her co-worker and friend, Daniel Croninger, said it was completely out of character for her to miss work without a heads up, especially without so much as a phone call. Daniel, being close to the family, had actually invited Chandler over to his house that Sunday night to watch fireworks. During their visit, Chandler casually mentioned that he had spoken with his parents and that they were planning to return on Monday. At first glance, Chandler's behavior didn't raise immediate alarms, but looking back, many things just didn't add up. When Krista failed to show up for work on Monday, Tuesday, and even Wednesday without so much as a call, it wasn't Chandler who grew concerned. It was her close friend and co-worker, Daniel. In fact, Daniel was the one who pushed Chandler to report his parents missing. It wasn't an act of urgency from a worried son. It was hesitation that needed a nudge. Even more unsettling, after Chandler had already arrived at the sheriff's precinct to file the report, he sent a text to his mother over an hour and a half later. The message read, "Hey, I'm worried. At the police station. Can you text or call?" It was sent as a standard SMS, not an iMessage, which meant Krista's phone was likely off. As detectives began digging, Chandler gave them a tour of the house. In the lower level, they noticed a makeshift fort made of couches pushed together, which Chandler said he'd been using as a bed. He explained that due to his recent head injury, he had trouble getting around in the dark, and since the upstairs bathroom near his room wasn't working, sleeping downstairs made it easier to reach the functioning bathroom at night. In the same room was a fireplace with a missing pane of glass. Chandler claimed it broke when he was playing fetch indoors with one of the family dogs. He cut his foot on the glass and left blood on the floor, a detail that raised eyebrows, especially when detectives saw how much effort had gone into cleaning that particular area. Nearby, they noticed a handwritten note from Krista that read, "Good morning, Chandler. Hope your day goes really well. Pam, just in case." It included a neighbor's phone number. Chandler said Krista had left it for him before heading to the cabin in case he experienced issues related to his head injury. But when detectives followed up with Pam, she gave them a different story. She did recall Krista asking if she'd be home the previous Wednesday, since Bart had a dentist appointment and someone needed to be close by for Chandler. But she said Krista never mentioned leaving a note for that weekend. To investigators, it started to look like Chandler may have recycled an old note and planted it, hoping it would sell his story. Meanwhile, Mitchell and his fiancée took matters into their own hands. They drove to the family cabin in White Lake to look around. Mitchell had been texting and calling their parents, but received no reply. Deputies from Langlade County met them there and searched the property. It was immediately obvious that no one had been there recently. The grass was overgrown, the cabin was locked and undisturbed, and there were no signs that anyone had been inside in weeks. They checked the shed and boathouse too. Nothing. No bags, no food, no footprints. The place was still as a ghost town. Even more suspicious, while there they found a flyer advertising the White Lake Parade. It was scheduled for Saturday, July 3rd at 2 p.m., not Sunday, as Krista's supposed text had claimed. Back in Windsor, Chandler was going door to door in his neighborhood, asking if anyone had seen or heard anything about his parents. One neighbor's doorbell camera caught Chandler asking if their security system had picked up any activity early Friday morning. He specifically asked if it recorded anything before 6:15 a.m.
Wondering if you were able to capture the road or my house. Yeah, did it capture anything on?
We don't know. We don't know. They just took a copy of everything, and so we're hoping.
Wide angle lens.
Yeah, and it's all.
Be able to get a.
Yeah, and it's all.
The neighbor agreed to check and later shared the footage with authorities. What the video showed was damning. No one left the house that morning. Bart and Krista weren't picked up. They didn't drive away. They never left. By Friday evening, July 8th, Chandler was called back to the station for a formal interview with Detective Shunk. This time, his behavior was noticeably off. Left alone in the room, he walked over to the wall and pressed his ear against it, as if trying to listen in on a conversation happening outside. He looked uneasy, maybe even paranoid. It wasn't clear if he realized he was being recorded. But as soon as the detective entered, Chandler tried fishing for information. He asked if officers were at his house. He said a detective had mentioned that something happened. He wanted to know if there was a warrant. He was visibly trying to figure out how much investigators knew. But Detective Shunk gave him nothing. When the interview began, Chandler was asked to walk through his timeline again. He mentioned that Wednesday, June 30th, was when the glass on the fireplace broke. He cut his foot and said his girlfriend, Kat, thought the wound might be infected. Chandler claimed his father was furious about the broken glass and sent him to his room, a detail that struck the detective as strange. Chandler was 23 years old. Being sent to his room at that age raised questions about the household dynamic. As Chandler continued, his words gave away more than he probably realized. He casually described the following days as if his parents had simply gone away and left him in charge. He admitted to not really doing much while they were gone. "Should have been cleaning," he said. He mentioned that the house looked pretty clean when the police arrived, except for dog hair. But detectives noted that everything in the basement, shelves, boxes, bins, was immaculately organized and labeled. It didn't match Chandler's laid-back personality. Something about it felt forced.
By the way, a detective at my house said something's happened, and while we were leaving, people were going inside. Is there a warrant for my house?
Should there be?
No, I'm just wondering if
Okay.
can they go in?
As far as I know, they were at your house and they were going to be there talking to you to ask if you would come up here and talk to us.
But Officer Haley just like walked pretty much in to the gate. You know, the gate on the outside. She just kind of walked in. I was wondering.
Was that when you were getting your wallet?
No, we were. I was in the car waiting to leave. I was just wondering if everything's okay because she said something's happened.
Okay.
And we need to go down.
Alright. I'll find out what that's about.
Well, has anything bad happened? Oh.
Not sure.
The more you observed, the clearer it became that Chandler may have been under pressure, not just from the investigation, but from within his own home. Friends and family later described the Haldersons as meticulous, structured, and very involved in their sons' lives. That structure may have started to feel suffocating to someone like Chandler, especially if he was already hiding things. And soon, investigators would discover just how much he had been hiding. It was during a casual dinner on Thursday evening that Chandler claimed his parents told him about their weekend plans. Over plates of what he described as shrimpless scampi, a version of his dad's favorite dish made without shrimp, the conversation turned toward the cabin. According to Chandler, it was during this meal that Bart and Krista mentioned they would be heading up north with some friends. Chandler acted nonchalant about it, responding with a simple, "Oh, cool." He said his father, ever the practical one, requested tools for pipe repair and gas cans for the trip. So Chandler retrieved the items, plumbing supplies from a tote in the garage and a couple of red jerry cans, and helped move their already packed duffel bags to the mudroom near the garage. After gathering supplies, Chandler said the three of them watched a movie together before Bart and Krista headed off to bed. Chandler stayed up late playing video games, then eventually made his way downstairs to sleep on the makeshift couch fort he had built. He claimed he woke up around 6:15 a.m. Friday morning to find the house empty. His parents, he said, had already left. He fed the dogs, saw a note from his mother with insurance cards, supposedly left for his upcoming doctor's appointment, and then went about his day. But by that point, investigators had already confirmed that no one left the house that morning. That security footage from the neighbor's camera confirmed that no vehicles were pulled into the driveway. By now, detectives were starting to see through the cracks in his story. While Chandler told investigators he spent the 4th of July weekend relaxing, playing games, and spending time with his girlfriend, Kat, detectives were interviewing Kat separately. She believed Chandler was innocent and happily recounted their weekend, thinking she was helping clear them both from suspicion. As a fan of true crime, Kat even joked about how the people closest to the victim are usually the first to be looked at, unaware that detectives were already comparing her statements to Chandler's. While most of their timelines matched, there were a few key discrepancies that couldn't be ignored.
That'd be crazy. Sorry, I sound very monotone right now, but just no. No. Mm-mm.
No.
No.
Not a mean bone in his body?
Well, everyone has a mean bone. They even said Mother Teresa was a dick sometimes, but I just don't see him killing Mr. and Mrs. Halderson. He had SpaceX. Why would he jeopardize something he, would dream of, you know? They're his parents. For Christmas, they got him and his brother matching tool sets. Come on. he cooks dinner for them. They have root beer floats together. They play Mario Kart whenever his parents want to. Like,
And his brother Mitchell, you think?
Mitchell,
Yeah, he's
a leaf in the wind.
One of those inconsistencies involved a visit to a farm owned by Cress, Kat's mother's girlfriend. On Sunday, July 4th, Kat and Chandler visited the farm for dinner, but Chandler claimed he went back the following day on his own to talk to Cress and Dulcie, Kat's mom, about his health. He said he told them that his leg issues might be permanent and that he'd likely lose his opportunity to work at SpaceX because he wouldn't be able to travel. After breaking down emotionally, he claimed, they let him use the pool to relax. According to Chandler, he simply went for a walk in the woods and came back itchy, a result of the grass or bugs, he said, before washing off in the pool. But when investigators spoke with Cress, she recalled things differently. She remembered Chandler asking if he could use the pool the day before, which she allowed. But on Monday, when he returned alone, he disappeared for a period of time after backing his father's blue Subaru Outback into the woods. She said the trunk was open, and Chandler was nowhere to be found. Eventually, he emerged from the wooded area and casually walked to the pool. The timing, his behavior, and the odd disappearance didn't sit right with her. Detectives took her suspicions seriously. As Chandler sat in an interview room at the station recounting his weekend in disjointed pieces, officers were already on the farm executing a search. It didn't take long before they spotted vultures circling overhead, always a grim sign. As one deputy moved toward the wooded area where Chandler had been seen, he noticed a suspicious pile of branches. Beneath them, he found something horrifying. A human torso. The body had no head, no arms, and no legs. It was clothed only in gray cargo shorts with a black belt, and a rope was tied around the waist. 2 bullet wounds were visible on the torso. Nearby, a garbage can held a bloodied tarp and a Target shopping bag filled with bloody rags. That bag had a shipping label with Kat's name on it. Close to where Chandler's car had been parked, officers also found a rusted metal drum. Inside were saw blades and a pair of scissors. Though the remains had yet to be officially identified, investigators strongly suspected the torso belonged to Bart Halderson. Simultaneously, back at the Halderson home, police were uncovering more chilling evidence. Blood was discovered on the basement floor. Inside the fireplace, the same one with the shattered glass, they found bone fragments, a bullet fragment, and a spent shell casing. In the garage, hidden under a shelf and stuffed inside a shoe, they discovered Bart and Krista's driver's licenses and cell phones wrapped in tin foil and paper towels. Detective Shunk was still sitting across from Chandler in the interview room when the notification came in. They had found human remains. Keeping a calm exterior, he leaned in and asked a chilling but necessary question.
Okay. So we have like 20 pages of writing. We're going to start with a clean white piece of paper for you to start telling the truth. Okay. What? Because listen to me. This is the only chance you're going to have to tell us the truth. Okay. Okay. Listen. I can't tell you what we know, but we know you're not telling us the truth. We know your parents are no longer with us. Okay, and we know the reason why. Okay, you need to tell the truth. Listen. You need to tell the truth about what happened and just tell us why it happened. Okay? If something happened, if you were defending yourself or if you just got fed up with stuff, you need to tell us the truth. Okay? This is your chance to tell us why. Okay? I'm not BSing you. Okay? So can we do that?
Okay, they're okay. Lawyer. I'm sorry. Say it again, Jay. Lawyer. Okay. Because they're. Okay.
You want a lawyer?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
It was 6:41 p.m. Chandler Halderson was officially under arrest. Not because he made a mistake once, but because nearly every part of his story was built on lies that were crumbling fast. His plan, if you could call it that, was unraveling at every corner. He didn't act confused. He didn't look shocked. He wasn't concerned about his parents. He was annoyed that the detectives weren't buying his story. His eyes weren't full of fear or grief. They were calculating. To many observers, Chandler's plan seemed painfully naive. He thought if he reported his parents missing, authorities would just log it, shrug, and move on. That no one would search, no one would ask questions, and the murder would simply fade. But what he didn't count on was that Bart and Krista Halderson were beloved, respected, known. And when people like that disappear, the world notices. The torso found on the farm was confirmed to be Bart's, but Krista was still missing. That's when investigators turned to Kat, Chandler's girlfriend, who had been incredibly cooperative from the start. She allowed them to access her phone's location data. What she didn't know was that it would provide the missing link. Chandler had once cheated on Kat, so she used Snapchat's location tracking to keep tabs on him. On Saturday morning, July 3rd, she saw Chandler, labeled Hubby in her app, 25 miles from home, near the Wisconsin River. She took a screenshot to maybe ask why he was there. Using that information, investigators searched the area. And it was there they found Krista's legs, dismembered and cut into sections. DNA confirmed they were hers. Blood found on tools at the farm matched both Bart and Krista. The evidence was mounting, and Chandler was running out of places to hide.
A Dane County man convicted of killing and dismembering his parents will spend the rest of his life in prison.
Chandler Halderson was convicted of killing Bart and Krista Halderson back in January. Halderson had initially reported his parents missing last summer, but he was later arrested for lying to police about their whereabouts. Investigators eventually found the Haldersons' remains scattered around Dane County. The trial had 8 days of witnesses and included testimonies from neighbors, family friends, and Chandler's own brother.
The Dane County judge says life in prison is the only way to protect people from Chandler Halderson.
A jury convicted Halderson of killing and dismembering his parents, as we mentioned last summer. His life sentence also comes without the possibility of parole.
Now, if you thought the murders were the darkest part of this story, brace yourself. Because as investigators dug deeper, they uncovered something even more disturbing. Chandler Halderson's entire life was a lie. Not just one detail, not just a misunderstanding, everything. He hadn't been attending college. He never worked at American Family Insurance. He hadn't landed a job at SpaceX. In fact, every claim he had made to his parents, his girlfriend, and his friends was fabricated. Chandler had gone so far as to create fake email addresses, writing and replying to himself as if he were professors or HR managers, crafting long chains of false correspondence to keep up the illusion that he was a successful student and a promising professional. But eventually, the cracks started to show, and Bart Halderson noticed. Tired of excuses and delays, Bart contacted Madison College directly. He asked for Chandler's transcripts and proof of a certificate in renewable energy. What he got back was devastating. Chandler wasn't enrolled. He wasn't earning any credential. In fact, he owed the school over $2,000. Bart wasn't just disappointed. He was done being lied to. He scheduled a meeting at the college for Thursday, July 1st at 2:30 in the afternoon. At 2:10 p.m., Bart texted his son, "I'm ready whenever you are." Bart never made it to that meeting. Authorities believe Chandler shot his father in the basement that afternoon before they could leave the house. Evidence later confirmed it. A bullet fragment and a spent shell casing were found in the fireplace. Blood on the floor matched Bart's DNA. Then, in a cold attempt to buy time, Chandler texted his mother, asking her to pick up soda on the way home. And when Krista walked through that front door, she never had a chance. Chandler killed her too. Her blood, like Bart's, was found in the basement. That same night, Chandler went to Quick Trip and bought 20 pounds of ice, not for drinks, but likely to preserve the bodies in a chest freezer in the basement. Blood would later be found in the freezer's drain. He dismembered both his parents using power tools and an axe. Both later recovered, both covered in DNA. Surveillance footage showed Chandler the next morning at Fleet Farm, buying a tarp. That tarp was later found wrapped around Bart's torso, complete with Chandler's fingerprint. That day, Chandler texted his girlfriend Kat asking for hydrogen peroxide and more ice. He claimed their ice maker was broken and that his family just liked their drinks extra cold. As investigators traced Chandler's movements, they found even more horrifying evidence. He had driven to the Wisconsin River, a spot he'd visited the year before, and even posed for pictures at. It was there that he dumped Krista's dismembered legs. His phone data showed he made multiple stops near the river, but her remaining body parts were never recovered. On Monday, July 5th, Chandler told Kat he had a follow-up doctor's appointment. He even texted her play-by-play updates, pretending to check in, get x-rays, and undergo scans. But records showed he never left his house until 4:30 that afternoon, the same time he drove back to the farm and dumped Bart's torso. After filing the missing persons report, Chandler began Googling phrases like body found in Wisconsin and dismembered body found in Milwaukee River. The remains hadn't even been discovered yet. He was searching in advance. Then came the final blow. While cleaning her shed, Cress, Kat's mom's girlfriend, discovered a semi-automatic rifle tucked away behind some supplies. At first, she thought it belonged to her elderly father. But when she remembered Chandler's visit, she alerted police. The gun was traced back to Chandler. It was the murder weapon. The trial began in January of 2022. Chandler was charged with first-degree intentional homicide, hiding a corpse, lying to law enforcement, and mutilating a body. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence. The defense didn't even try to claim innocence. Instead, they argued that the killings weren't premeditated, that Chandler may have simply panicked, that maybe it was all a horrible accident. But Bart had been shot twice in the back. Krista had been chopped apart. Phones were hidden. Bodies burned. Lies stacked higher than the ceiling. On January 20th, the jury returned a unanimous verdict, guilty on all counts. 2 months later, Chandler appeared in court for sentencing. For the first time, he spoke, but there was no apology, no emotion. Chandler Halderson was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. No early release, no second chance, just silence. The same silence he tried to cover his crimes with. If he had told the truth from the beginning, things might have been different. But his need to protect his lie, his image, his fantasy, cost 2 people their lives. Now, the world sees Chandler for what he truly is, not the college-bound prodigy, not the rising SpaceX recruit, but a manipulator, a liar, and a killer who will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Meanwhile, his older brother Mitchell Halderson has tried to move forward with his life, though the trauma is something he'll likely carry forever. Mitchell was the one who drove to the family cabin and searched for their parents himself. not yet knowing the horrific truth. He testified at Chandler's trial and made it clear how out of character it was for their mother to go anywhere without telling him. Today, Mitchell continues to work in software development and lives privately, away from the public eye. He and his fiancée have kept a low profile since the trial, and while they've stayed out of the media, their strength during the proceedings was deeply felt in court. Krista's co-workers and close friends also struggled to make sense of the tragedy. One in particular, Daniel, who had been close with the family and worked with Krista, played a key role early on by urging Chandler to report his parents missing. Many of Krista's colleagues described her as a warm, dedicated, and deeply involved mother. Her sudden disappearance, and the horrifying truth that followed, shook their community to its core. As for Kat, Chandler's ex-girlfriend, she cooperated fully with investigators and provided key location data from her Snapchat that led to the discovery of Krista's remains. She had believed Chandler was innocent at first, and only wanted to clear both of them from suspicion. She's since moved on with her life and stayed out of the public spotlight. The people left behind, family, friends, and the community, are still healing from what happened. The betrayal, the shock, and the unimaginable loss of two loving parents at the hands of their own son left scars that time may never fully erase. But through it all, they've held on to the memories of Bart and Krista, choosing to honor their lives, even after everything they endured. Now I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think the sentence was fair? Or is this one of those cases where a life is a life, especially when both parents were the victims of their own son? Was justice truly served? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you've made it this far, be sure to check out this next video. I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you once again for watching.